now. Okay. And I would like to start off with a quick land acknowledgement. So Cal Poly Humboldt is located on the present and ancestral homeland and unceded territory of the Wiyot tribe. Please donate to the Wiyot Tribe Honor Tax. We encourage direct giving to the tribes and native-led efforts. Tribes and nations in Humboldt County include Hoopa, Karuk, Matoli, Tawala, Wailaki, Wiyot, and Yurok. We make this land acknowledgement in recognition that our words must be matched by action and approach. Please learn from Dr. Kutcher Rosling Baldy's lecture, What Good is a Land Acknowledgement? And I will put the honor tax link in the chat after I do all of my introductions. So glad that all of you can be here today. This is our second year doing the GRFP introduction, and it's been so wonderful. We had to bring it back for another year. So after this presentation, there will be a short Q&A, so please type your questions when the time comes into the chat box below or to the Q&A, whichever one you prefer, and we will get to those questions. And without further ado, I would like to introduce our guests from the National Science Foundations. Dr. Hill and Dr. Norman are both program directors of the NSF GRFP. Dr. Hill is also a professor emeritus at Boise State University teaching geoscience and anthropology. He has served as associate dean and acting dean for the graduating college. He has been a program director for NSF since 2017 for several programs, including the Graduate Research Fellowship Program, the Graduate Research Internship Program, and many more. Dr. Norman, in addition to being a program director for the NSF GRFP, is the lead program director for the NSF EHR Racial Equity in STEM Education Program Description, and is an associate professor of Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in the Department of Engineering and Technology. She has been a program director for NSF since 2019. She is also a Fulbright Scholar, a volunteer NASA Solar System Ambassador, and a U.S. Army veteran. So without further ado, I lead you to our beautiful and wonderful presenters. Thank you very much.
Hi, Erica, thank you very much. I'm going to share the screen, and could you let me know if things look okay?
Perfect.
Okay. Well, we're delighted to be here. The National Science Foundation has a great program called the Graduate Research Fellowship Program, or GRFP. And today we're going to tell you a little bit about this amazing opportunity, share some information with you about GRFP, or the Graduate Research Fellowship Program at the National Science Foundation, or NSF. Now, we won't be able to go into all the details, but if you find after this presentation and the Q&A session that this is something that's exciting to you, something that you seem to be eligible for, then one suggestion is to go and look at some of the resources that are available online. And we'll put up a version of this slide at the end, but probably the most important information is right at the bottom of this slide, www.nsfgrfp.org. Here's the plan then for today. We're going to give a presentation, and after that, there'll be time for some questions and hopefully some good answers to your questions. And the basic part of the presentation is really to give you an idea about GRFP. So a little bit of general information and a description of the program, and a little bit about eligibility and ineligibility, just so you can determine if it's a opportunity that fits the kinds of things you're interested in. And then we'll look at the application package itself, the different parts of the application. And we'll talk a little bit about what reviewers look at in terms of that application, or the review criteria. So that's the basic idea for the presentation. I'm going to hand it off to my colleague, Dr. Norman, who will start us off with a little bit more information about NSF GRFP.
Thank you all for joining us today. We're proud to say that NSF GRFP is actually NSF's oldest program. It's actually NSF's first program. It's been around since 1952. So the first thing that NSF decided to do was fund students. There's been over 60,000 GRF awards awarded. There are 40 plus fellows that are going on to become Nobel laureates. We're proud to say we have fellows from and in every state. And that over 450 fellows have gone on to become members of National Academy of Sciences. One of the key things we say about GRFP is to submit early. As you can see on the bottom left screen, if you want, as Dr. Hill mentioned, detailed information about GRFP, including the latest solicitation, you will go to nsfgrfp.org. What you'll also find there is a decision tree, which will help you determine your eligibility. And if you go in and actually complete an application, you'll go through a formal compliance check. So a good reason to submit early is that you can go through all these checks ahead of time. So GRFP is open to individuals who are pursuing research-based master's or doctoral degree programs in eligible fields of study. And those fields of study include all major fields of study supported by NSF, which you can see on the bottom right-hand side of this slide. What's important to note that under each of those major fields of study, there are numerous subfields. So though you may not see your major fields of study, you know that there are subfields under those. And to get the full list, of course, you go to nsfgrfp.org for that additional information. So the GRFP is has a 5-year fellowship period. 3 of those years are financially supported. There's no postgraduate study service requirement. By financial support, we mean a $34,000 a year annual stipend for those 3 years and $12,000 cost of education allowance. A little bit about the competition. We usually get over 500 academic institutions represented. We get over 12,000 applications and we give out over 2,000 offers. Next slide, please. I'm going to go into a little bit more about the description. Next slide. So as I mentioned before, it's 5 years for the GRFP. 3 of those years financially supported, which comes to about $138,000. There are other opportunities that fall under GRFP. There's the intern, which is a very nicely funded non-academic internship program. We also support individuals with disabilities, and we support career life balance initiative for our fellows. Next slide, please. So important things to note is that GRFs are awarded to individuals, but they're paid through the graduate institutions. They're flexible, so our fellows have a choice of projects, advisory, and graduate programs. And one example of flexibility is, say you're getting a master's degree, maybe use 2 years of funding at one institution. The GRFP is flexible enough for you to take that last year of funding to another institution. It's unrestricted. So as I mentioned before, no post-graduation service requirement. And as I just talked about, it's portable. So when we talked about approximately 200 fellows being awarded yearly, that gives us approximately a 17% success rate in 2021. And when you think of success rate, think also about the fact that I said apply early, because you want to make sure that you meet the eligibility criteria and that you properly submit the application in a compliant way. Next slide, please. The overall goal of GRFP is to recruit individuals into STEM fields. So we want to select, recognize, and financially support individuals who have demonstrated the potential to be high achieving scientists and engineers early in their careers. So just starting off, to broaden participation in STEM, and that's of underrepresented groups, including women, minorities, veterans, and persons with disabilities. Next slide, please. I'm going to talk a little bit more about eligibility. Next slide. So the latest solicitation is NSF 21-602. But it's important to note that when you're applying a GRF or you're supporting a GRF application, that you look and find the latest solicitation so you can know any details, because sometimes those finer details might change. To be eligible for GRFP, you have to be a US citizen, a national or permanent resident, early in your career, meaning undergrad or early graduate student, and we'll talk about the levels in a second. Again, as I mentioned, pursuing a research-based master's or doctoral program. So we don't support professional degrees, and we'll talk a little bit about detail what I mean by professional degrees. It also must be in a STEM field or STEM education field, or it can also be in the history of STEM. Full enrollment is required in graduate degree program at an accredited nonprofit US institution. Unfortunately, we do not support foreign institutions. So when we talk about GRFP, there are 4 levels. So on the right-hand side of this slide, you'll see there are 4 levels. Level 2 and level 3 can only apply to once. So level 2 is the first-year graduate student. Level 3 is the second-year graduate student. Level 3 is you have no more than 1 year. So you're just starting off that second year, but no more than 1 year graduate school, and you can apply only once when you're in that situation. Our other levels are level 1s, which means that you're either a senior or you just got your, or you only have your bachelor's degree, in which case you have no graduate study and you can apply as many times as you fall into that level 1 category. Our other level is our level 4, and those are our returning graduate students. And these are the students that may have had a greater than 2-year interruption in graduate study. Next slide, please. So I mentioned before that there are some degree programs that are ineligible. Those professional degree programs, such as the MBA or MD programs, even if they're joint degrees, so if it's joint MD, PhD, we don't support those. The MPH programs or the community health programs, we don't support. Counseling and social work programs, we don't support. Again, we don't support education programs, but it's important to say we support STEM education programs, which we love to get applications in that area. And the history of STEM, except in history, we don't support, but history of science, we do support. And to get that full list, to be very accurate, you would look at the newest solicitation. Next slide, please. If we went deeper and we talked about ineligible fields of study, we would say that the research, which is directly health-related goals, such as disease prevention or clinical research, patient-oriented research, these are ineligible for GRFP. Outcomes research, such as research directly leading to clinical trials or health standards of care or health policy, are ineligible. Applied research on plant pathologies, such as maximizing agricultural production and impacts on food safety, are all ineligible fields of study. I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Hill to talk some about the application package.
Thank you, Dr. Norman. Well, Dr. Norman's given you a great look at the overall goals of GRFP and some of the factors connected with eligibility and ineligibility. If you're interested still in GRFP, the next question might be, well, how do I apply? What are the steps in applying? So let's look at the application package for the Graduate Research Fellowship Program. There are really 5 parts to a complete application for GRFP. The first part is a bunch of information on your, well, it's personal information, and then information about your education and your work experience. And then there are 2 written statements, and one's a 3-page personal relevant background and future goals statement. And then the other is a graduate research statement that's kind of a research plan. And then the other parts to a complete GRFP application are the transcripts and letters of reference. So let's talk about each one of these in a little bit more detail, and start off with letting you know when the application is due. Typically, as an example, last year, the applications were all due the 3rd week in October, and the deadline day depends on what field of study you're planning on going to go to for your graduate school. So for example, last year, October 18th was the deadline day for life sciences. And then further on in the week, engineering was the 21st. And you can see those other examples. So the deadlines are 5 p.m. based on your local mailing address. And to get more details, as Dr. Norman mentioned, you could look right now just to see how things are generally set up. You could look at the solicitation that's currently available, which is 21-602. But historically, there'll be another one sometime in the summer, later in the summer, and you should look to make sure that you have an up-to-date version. If you would like to request accessibility accommodations connected with your application, please contact info@nsfgrfp.org at least 4 weeks before the application deadline. So connected with that application deadline, the applications are due in late October. And here's kind of the timeline for GRFP. The week after the applications are due is the week that the reference letters are due. And if you're a level 1, and you might remember that a level 1 is a person that isn't in graduate school, either an undergraduate, senior, or someone who has graduated but hasn't started, well, then you need to apply. So to grad school. So first you apply to GRFP in October, and then you can use some of the things that you prepared as part of your application, or at least to prepare for your graduate school application. Then just about this time, in typically late March and early April, NSF sends out the list of offers in terms of who actually gets an opportunity to take on a fellowship. And right about this time in early May is when whoever is selected has to let us know, and they have to accept the award. And based on that, we work really hard to get everything ready, and then next fall, your fellowship year can begin. So that's a general timeline. Now, let's talk a little bit about each one of these parts of the application. Specifically, let's start with the personal and research statements. Remember, there are 2 statements. The first one is the personal relevant background and goals statement. It's a 3-page PDF that you have to send in. And really, this is your opportunity to tell your story and demonstrate your potential for STEM research. And it can include personal and professional experiences that contributed to your motivation and your preparation for pursuing a STEM career. What that means is you could include information about your own career aspirations and also your future goals and how your past experiences have shaped your goals. And you can also include information on past research, or if you worked in industry or you conducted some kind of professional experience, some kind of project. You could talk about how you got involved in it, what you did, how it was connected to your coursework. So basically providing a background on you and telling your story. So that's the 3-page PDF. Now there's another statement that has to be written. It's the research statement. It's really an opportunity to describe a proposed research plan. And you should communicate your research idea and approach, explain the plan and the methods you'll use and what you expect to learn, and how will you know that your project would be successful, and what would you do afterwards. It's really important when you think about your research plan statement that you don't make it too overly technical. There are going to be people reading your application and your statements that are specialists in the general major field of study. So they're going to be trained scientists or trained researchers and educators in STEM, but they may not have all the technical expertise that's connected with your subspecialty. So keep that in mind. Don't make it too full of jargon, and communicate clearly for non-specialists. and make your contributions to the plan really clear. Now, when you write your statement, there are two things to remember in terms of what the National Science Foundation looks at in terms of evaluating either applications or proposals. And NSF uses what are called the merit review criteria of intellectual merit and broader impacts. And when you write your research statement, you should have those under two distinct subheadings, so it's easy for the reviewers to pick out that information. Now, besides those two statements, you also have to send in the names of people that will write letters of reference for you, and you have to send in your transcripts. So here's a little bit of information that's really important to understand about the letters of reference. When you are in the application, it's an online application, you have to list at least 3 names, okay, of people who might be able to send in a letter for you. You can list up to 5. So if you do that, if somebody can't for some reason at the last minute send in a letter, you'll have a couple backups. So you need to send in at least 3 names. You have the opportunity to list 5, and for NSF to look at your application, at least 2 of those letters have to be sent in. And in terms of your transcripts, all the applicants have to submit their bachelor's degree transcripts. And for all degree programs, you have to send in your transcripts. They can be official or unofficial. So just to remember, besides the personal statement and the research plan statement, you have to get in at least 3 names and your transcripts. Now, that whole package, all those things I just described, are used by the reviewers for NSF to evaluate the application. So let's talk a little bit about what the reviewers look at, the review criteria. As I mentioned, they're going to look at intellectual merit and broader impacts. And they're going to have a comprehensive review of the entire application. So not just the 2 statements, but the whole package. And these review criteria of intellectual merit and broader impact are based on the National Science Board approved merit review criteria. Basically, intellectual merit is how important is the proposed activity to advancing knowledge. And broader impacts is how well does the proposed activity benefit society or advance desired societal outcomes. Let me talk about each of these in a little bit more detail. First, remember the whole application is going to be looked at, comprehensive review, and with the idea of evaluating your demonstrated potential for significant achievement using a holistic approach to the evaluation, looking at all parts of the application. In terms of intellectual merit for the entire application, remember this is essentially the potential to advance knowledge. And examples of what the reviewers might find as evidence of that within all the parts of your application would be, well, the grades on your transcripts, any awards or publications you have, the plan to conduct research, any information you provide that provides information about working as a member of a team or working independently, communicating science, information about taking the initiative and solving problems and persisting. Really, it's about your potential of your approach to your major field of study and the research plan to advance knowledge. So that can be found, intellectual merit can be found in all parts of the application. It could be found in the personal statement, the research plan, the letters, and the transcripts, and all the information that's part of it. So that's intellectual merit, the potential to advance knowledge. And broader impacts, the other review criteria is really the potential impact of you, the applicant, as an individual, or the potential impact of the research on society and why that's important. So there are many examples of this, but some of them would include increasing participation of underrepresented groups, women, and persons with disabilities and veterans. It could include examples of mentoring, either your experiences or your plans in mentoring or outreach. It could be examples of increasing public literacy, communicating outreach about STEM, or increasing collaboration between academia and industry and other parts of the community. And just like intellectual merit, broader impacts can be found in all parts of the application. So the reviewers are looking at the statements and the letters and the everything to see what there might be in terms of broader impacts. Well, we hope that that provides you with an overview of GRFP. It's an amazing opportunity, the Graduate Research Fellowship Program at the National Science Foundation. If you want more information, please go to www.nsfgrfp.org, nsfgrfp.org. If there are faculty members or administrators out there from Cal Poly Humboldt, and you want a little bit more of an insight on the review process, you can sign up to let us know that you would be interested in serving as a reviewer. And to do that, you can go to that same site, nsfgrfp.org, and then go to /reviewers and sign up to let us know about your interest. Well, I hope that gives you a kind of a overview of GRFP. And Dr. Norman and I are really excited about the chance to answer your questions now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Harrell and Dr. Norman. So now we're at the point where Q&A is upon us. So if you have any questions, please enter them in either the Q&A function or in the chat, and I will moderate and ask either one your questions.